Atlanta Hawks are planning a tribute night to Magic City Strip Club. I'm appalled. I'm disgusted. I'm furious because I can't be there. So while some of y'all are out there being appalled that the Atlanta Hawks would come up with such a promotional event, I just want to state for the record, I understand. And I dare any man that has heard of or has appeared at Magic City to refute what I'm saying. Magic City will forever be an integral part of the culture. It truly will be. And I just think it's important that for this very, very, very unique promotional marketing event that's scheduled to take place March 16th, that we give the Atlanta Hawks their props for innovation, for courage, and for nostalgia to remind us all of what Magic City means to us.
It's a cultural thing, right? When you talk about Atlanta, you talk about the Atlanta Falcons, you talk about the Atlanta Hawks. Magic City is part of their like the strip clubs and all that, it's part of their culture. And a lot of people that came through the ranks of playing in Atlanta, rappers, entertainers, they talk about it. There's people that go to Magic City, you know what, to have wings, right?
Yes.
So it's like, we making this a bad thing.
An NBA franchise is holding a joint promotional event with a strip club. They're even going to sell branded merch. I mean, how insane, and by insane, awesome is that? I could not believe it. Like, what the hell took so long for that to happen? How has that not happened sooner? That's what I couldn't believe. Not that it was happening, but that it didn't happen sooner.
That was my first strip club experience. Okay. Good times.
Let's do a demo. Let's run through it.
I was in awe, let me tell you that. You see some things in there that make you say, wow. It's great. No favorite Magic City stories. That's what this is.
They tried his wings. Never been. They tried his wings.
No, were you all more cheetah guys? You were.
What was your flight? I was Four Seasons guy, you know, resting for the game.
Got it.
The next night.
Yeah.
Why is virtually no one denouncing this Atlanta Hawks event? And more importantly, why aren't women denouncing this Magic City event? And I'll tell you why women aren't, because men aren't. Because men set the tone. And so men, now that we don't set the tone any longer, now that we wonder, oh, how will women feel about this or that, rather than being the tone setters and the leaders, we now are allowing women to build a brand around being hoes. And that's why no one's complaining about the Atlanta Hawks mainstreaming the strip club environment. Lou Cornette came out and made a statement. The only NBA player that's followed in behind him is Al Horford. Everybody else has been completely silent on this issue. My mind is blown. But it's not really blown if you understand what's been going on with women in general and black women in particular. I'm going to connect this to Black Lives Matter. What did Black Lives Matter say that it wanted to do, that one of its primary goals, to disrupt the nuclear family? That's what this whole thing is about. Black women have bought into the brand. White women and just women in general have bought into the brand that they're no different than men. And so men have sat around for hundreds of years, and particularly in my lifetime, bragging about our sexual conquest, our sexual promiscuity, and now women, in their attempt to be men, now they're bragging about their sexual promiscuity, about their hoishness. It's now been mainstream. Women are no different than men. And we as men, we don't want to take on the responsibility of being leaderships and disavowing, repenting from our hoish ways. This has been one of my biggest struggles. I had to move out of Los Angeles and basically become a hermit to try to deny myself the patterns of behavior, the habits that I had normalized. Hanging out in strip clubs, chasing young women, defining my masculinity and my worth by sexual conquest. It is very difficult. But if men aren't willing to step up and be leaders, don't expect women to follow. Expect women to continue to lead us and all of our society and men straight to hell. That is what's going on here. I look at a woman as beautiful as Taylor Rooks. And again, I'm 58. I've lived long enough to remember when women as beautiful as Taylor Rooks would hold themselves up and hold themselves to a standard of like, and again, Taylor Rooks is married. I want to be careful here, but women saw themselves as dignified and they wanted to protect their body count, being seen as a whole. Now women want to be seen as a whole. Now that's the in thing to do. I was talking this morning with our team about, hey, what's going on here? You know, there's a lot of promotion of the strip club environment. And Justin made the point, like, strip clubs in Magic City, they might be desperate right now because this is how bad things have gone as men have followed women. Women have taken over the leadership responsibility and women have tried to become men. Here's why strip clubs and the whole strip club culture, if you want to look at rap and what's going on with that culture and why there's this desperation and why, and when Justin first said it, I was like, wow, that kind of blows my mind that strip clubs are becoming less popular, less a part of the culture, and this is a desperation deal for relevancy. But he's actually right. Women have become so hoish, and I need to think of another word, but I can't at the moment, that you don't have to go to a strip club anymore. Women, when they go to a nightclub, are dressed like strippers. Cleavage is everywhere. How many women go to a nightclub with everything except for their nipples exposed? How many red carpet events have we seen just in the past 6 months? Red carpet Hollywood events where women are basically with their breast out and their nipples covered. How many women find outfits as the bottoms as tiny as possible with their butt cheeks hanging out? Women are naked in the normal clubs. You don't have to go to a strip club anymore. And the next level of that is women now give it up on the first date. A woman that is actually modest in this era gives it up on the second or third date. That's what we consider a modest woman. You got to take her to Burger King, Olive Garden, and maybe Ruth Chris before you get any. But now it's Netflix and chill. Now it's just come over to the house and watch a movie together, and that's a date, and then we hit the bedroom. Why go to a strip club? You can get more action for free on a first date now because women have lowered their standards and because men have failed in leadership in setting a standard, demanding that they have a standard. We now treat the woman who is a hoe no different than a woman who is more modest and has a level of standards and responsibilities, a level of morality that says, hey, I'm saving this for my husband. I'm saving this for someone that I would consider marrying at the very least. I've lived long enough where, like, the standard used to be it's going to take a couple of months of real work before you get anywhere close to any serious action. Now the standard is, well, I've spent $36 on this date, or for your half of this date, let's hit the sack. And there's something wrong with the man if he's not trying to get in your panties after the first date. The hypocrisy of all of this, the lack of reaction that the Atlanta Hawks, an NBA franchise, NBA, the second or third most powerful sport in all of America, could partner with a strip club. a strip club that, it's basically a whole house. You can partner with them. The standards have fallen so far, and the hypocrisy is so deep because I live in an America where people pretend that Donald Trump, in a private conversation, talking to a friend of his, says something about grab him by the vagina, and that's the worst thing that's ever happened, and he's the worst president that's ever happened, and how could you vote for him? Don't you know what he said in a private conversation? Those people that complained about Donald Trump and that whole deal, and I'm sorry I had to go there because I know that's fingernails on a chalkboard for some of you, but it's just facts that our society and culture is so hypocritical and has fallen into a reprobate mind and a reprobate culture so far that an NBA franchise can host a strip club night, Magic City night, and virtually no one complain. Not women, not men, not even ministers. In Atlanta, MLK land, Jamal Bryant land, Raphael Warnock land. You would think one of these guys. I love this guy, but I'm hoping, and I'll be watching this week. I hope Philip Anthony Mitchell addresses this. He's right there in Atlanta. He seems to have an affinity for sports, but right there in Atlanta, the Southern Bible Belt for Black Christianity. No one has a word to say. No one's telling the Atlanta Hawks that they've gone too far. This isn't me saying, hey, man, we need to ban strip clubs, although we need to. But that's not me calling for that. But could we at least go back to a standard where there was some shame and that was something people did in private? Not something that we put in front of kids. Well, they're not bringing strippers to the game. They won't be performing at the game. And we think that makes it okay. That Magic City night at an NBA arena, sporting events where fathers bring their kids, fathers bring their families, fathers bring their sons and daughters. Strip club night. Imagine the conversations that's going to start. Or maybe it'll be a night where, hey, kids don't come. Regardless, we are sending a message to young women and to young men that sexual promiscuity, your nakedness, is the value you actually bring, and it's the value that will be celebrated. I call me a Bible thumper, call me a hypocrite, but I'm just telling you about, in reality, this is a horrendous sign of the decline of our culture and what the failure of men choosing not to be responsible, choosing not to pursue any type of righteousness. We have tricked women into believing that sexual promiscuity and becoming men is the ultimate goal in this life pursuit. My mind is blown at the lack of objection and that this is actually going to happen, and that the backup center for the Spurs is the only person who's going to raise a voice and say, hey, we're going too far. Everybody else is clapping and applauding and scoring their cool points. I mean, guys, everybody knows I love Jim Rome. Love him. He's been great to me. Nothing but respect. But I just, everybody needs cool points, so everybody has to act like they're good with this. It's not, you would not be hypocritical, because we had this conversation this morning. Well, the NBA players and a lot of guys, they won't speak against this because they go to a strip club or they've been to a strip club recently. I don't think you would be a hypocrite if you stood up and said, hey, man, I went to King of Diamonds last time I was in Miami, but I don't think that's something we need to be celebrating inside NBA arenas, NFL stadiums, or anything like that. That's an adult activity. It's like porn. It is porn. We're mainstreaming porn. And when I was saying it, everybody, I'm an old fuddy-duddy, when I was saying like, hey, man, what are we doing with the rappers, Bad Bunny to Dr. Dre to Snoop Dogg at the Super Bowl? At halftime of the Super Bowl, the biggest platform we have these pornographical rappers, because that's what rap is. The commercial rap is just lyrical pornography, and we're mainstreaming that. Well, should we be surprised that coming in behind the door that Dr. Dre and Snoop and Eminem open, that now sports teams, the Atlanta Hawks, are, hey, we're going to go full-blown celebration of pornography in a strip club environment? We'll start our discussion there today. I've got a special guest in studio with me. Pastor Corey Brooks is in Nashville, Tennessee. He's sitting right next to me. He'll participate in the conversation that we will have with Steve Kim, Jay Skapinac, and am I forgetting someone? Steve Kim, Jay Skapinac? Shamika. Yeah, I wanted to bring Shamika into this conversation. So buckle up for that. I want to tell those of you listening over Apple or Spotify to make sure you hit that 5-star rating. It's vitally important to help us fight the algorithms. That 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, please do that right now. The other thing you guys can do is support our primary sponsor, our best friends in this Fearless Army movement, Preborn. You guys know how I feel about Preborn. It supports my worldview that life begins at conception. It supports our worldview that life begins at conception. Preborn provides expectant mothers who are considering abortion, they provide them an ultrasound. They introduce that baby's heartbeat. They introduce a visual image of that baby inside the womb. And now that woman is twice as likely to choose life. And when she chooses life, Preborn steps in and steps up and supports that woman and child for up to 2 years. Preborn is able to do this because we do our jobs by donating to Preborn. It's just $28 for an ultrasound. 5 ultrasounds are $140. Whatever your best gift is, make it right now today. You want to feel good about yourself? You want to put a smile on God's face? Support life. Support that child in the womb. God would be pleased with you if you did that. I know it makes me individually feel good when I give, and it makes me think that, like, man, I think God's pleased with this action. Now, I may do a bunch of other dumb things during the day, but at least I've done this. At least every month I'm giving to Preborn. I'm supporting life in the womb. You can do it as well. Go to preborn.com/fearless, preborn.com/fearless, or dial #250 and say the keyword baby, #250, the keyword baby. When you do it, hit me with an email. Just, hey, Jason, fearlessblazeshow@gmail.com. Jason, sent some money to Preborn, wanted you to know. That makes me feel good as well. Luke, are we taking a break or are we going straight to these guys? We take a break. We're going to take a little 60-second break, and when we come back, Corey Brooks, Shamika Michelle, Jay Skapinac, and the Korean Cosell. The Saturday deal was as embarrassing as I think anything we've seen in professional sports. Who's this Kashad Johnson? Did he win the dunk contest? I believe he won. His dance, it's raining men is what they should have been playing while this was going on. It was the gayest thing I've ever seen among a group of professional athletes, because it wasn't just him. The whole Saturday deal, the NBA has been turned into a musical in these NBA arenas, and I see it bleeding over into football. 7-on-7 camps or musicals. the players on the field, they're all into the music, and the embarrassment and the gayness of Saturday made these guys. There was no dancing on Sunday, none, and just competition. And guys, I don't know if anything could have been worse than the Saturday deal, and I give them credit for recovery. All right, welcome back. Before we bring in Shamika Michelle and Steve Kim and Jay Skapinac, could we throw my man Pastor Brooks on camera and let him say hello to everybody? Corey Brooks in studio. Don't look at me, Corey. Let the camera do all the work. There we go. Let the camera do all the work. Are you enjoying your trip to Nashville?
I am enjoying my trip to Nashville. Very beautiful place. It's grown tremendously, and hanging out with you is a blessing. So it's a great day.
All right, get us rolling here. I'm going to put you on the spot first. Why is no one objecting to strip club night for the Atlanta Hawks?
I think a lot of the comments that you said are point on. I think the fact that women are not speaking out, I thought about that when you were speaking, that, okay, I kind of know how 90% of the men think about strip clubs and being okay with it. But I really am concerned about what are women thinking and why aren't women speaking out? And then when you made the comment about how women are becoming men, and that made a whole lot of sense, because it would seem to me that women all over America would be speaking out against this marketing ploy. And I can't quite understand it, but I do think we as men also have to start speaking out and letting people know that, listen, regardless of your stance on going to a strip club or not, there's just some things that should be private and not be brought to children. The fact that they're taking it to an NBA sporting arena with all of these kids is something that should be talked about. And I'm glad you're speaking up, and I'm glad you're talking about it, and I'm glad the guests are going to be talking about it.
Shamika, as the only lady in the group, why are women silent on this?
I think you hit the nail on the head, Jason. Women aren't saying anything because this is an effort for them to stand toe-to-toe with men. Let's be honest, unless you're a lesbian, no woman wants to see a naked woman gyrating on stage. You're just not interested. Obviously, as someone who did dance over 30 years ago, I've seen women dance, but it was no interest for me there. And I can remember dating a guy right out of my divorce who wanted to take me to a strip club in Atlanta. And I walked in and my mouth hit the floor. He had to tell me to fix my face because as someone who had danced years ago, I had no idea that women were in there absolutely butt naked. The club that I danced in, you only had to take your top off if you were doing a table or a room dance. You could never take your bottoms off. So when I saw that these women were completely naked, whether you were giving them $1 or not, just walking, through the club, popping their legs open, it was of no interest to me. So for women to be in strip clubs and to act as if they enjoy it, unless they're lesbian, they're really just trying to take on a masculine role and act as if, just to see them swing around the pole is something I've never seen before. No, unless you're out of shape, it doesn't do anything. And unless you're a lesbian, you don't care about seeing this. This is only about standing toe-to-toe with men and trying to be in a masculine frame.
I wanted a woman's voice on this. Obviously, that's why I invited you. But also, I wanted to deal with the people that will say, Jason Whitlock, you're a hypocrite. You've talked about going to strip clubs, all the time. And, I've repented from that. People are going to say, Shamika, you used to be a dancer at a strip club. You're a hypocrite. What do you say to them?
I don't think I was a hypocrite. Number one, there were no children in the strip club. You had to come to the strip club. The strip club was not coming out to you. For something as mainstream as the NBA to kind of take this on, I think it's silly. There was a division between adult things and children things years ago. And now we don't have that. That's the same reason that you have drag queen story hour. That's the same reason that teachers are asking children what was their sexual preference opposed to teaching them reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's not being hypocritical. It's saying, hey, there should be some things that's your private life. If that's what you're into as an adult, okay. But when you mainstream it and make it okay, it's not all right. And for me, even as someone who was young, who was 18, who was dancing in the club, I was embarrassed. It wasn't something that I paraded around and told everybody, this is what I'm doing. I was so ashamed that I hid it. And I can remember the guy I was dating at the time, I think he just threw me a grace line, who said, if I ever find out that you're doing something like that, I'll never talk to you again. And I never danced again. It just wasn't something that was popular, that was mainstream. And he set a standard and I met it. And so I feel like if men were to set a standard, women would actually meet that standard. But now men don't have standards. Women want to be men. Things are just crazy. And this should never just be something that's mainstream.
The other perspective I wanted to get from you was you've got 3 daughters, I believe, from age 28 to 19, maybe?
To 20.
To 20. And one of the things, I don't want to go TMI here and say something that I'm not supposed to say, but you do live transparently. One of the things that you've shared with me was that you were able to get all 3 of your daughters out of high school virgins. And that was one of your great accomplishments, and I applaud you for that. But from your daughter's perspective, and what the way that I say, like, dating standards have been so lowered that women are routinely having sex on a first, and it's late. On a second date, it's like, well, what are we doing here? Of course we're. But am I right about that? That that's how things roll now?
Oh, absolutely. And I think if a man doesn't get it on the first date, he's kind of thinking, oh, what's going on here? That is exactly how it goes nowadays. I've asked my children before, they'll tell me, oh, especially when they were in high school, this person is already having sex. But I just set a standard, me and their father, and it was just certain things we didn't allow them to do that I think helped. You weren't going to go out and be out all night. There were no boys that were going to be at the house. You weren't going to any boys' house because we know a lot of parents didn't hold those standards. So I think that we have lowered standards so much. Parents want to be friends instead of actually being the parent. But I think when you have a parent who's living any kind of way and you allow your child to live any kind of way, that's what it's going to be. If you have a revolving door as a grown woman, you're going to raise a daughter who has a revolving door, who's going to have sex on the first night. And that's just what it is. I truly believe if you can't get your child to act right at least through 18, you just aren't doing a good job as a parent.
Steve, I'm sitting here shocked that a Maria Taylor or a Taylor Rooks aren't speaking. Jamel Hill. I can't. That they're quiet on this or in support of this. Are you surprised?
No. Aren't they leaders of the new school that tell us this stuff is empowering? Isn't this all part of the modern women's live movement? I'm actually surprised that you're surprised. I'm actually stunned that they haven't come out louder in support of it. So, look, there's a lot of ways we can go here, but I'm going to repeat something I said. To what Shamika said, there used to be, I don't want to say shame, but there used to be a stigma in that line of work. And I'm not making a judgment. I don't think that stigma exists anymore. I think it's become more mainstream than ever. I mean, it's about 15, 20 years since T-Pain wrote a really catchy song called I'm in Love with the Stripper. I'll admit, it's a good song. I don't turn it off. It is a catchy tune with some clever lyrics. And at that point, it's like, you know what? All of the barriers are off. So, couple things. Number one, when I went to all the Miami playoff games during this playoff run, you know what I did a lot of? Did a lot of drinking of Coors Light and tailgating and being loud. You know what I would never do if I went to a church? Tailgate and bring that Coors Light inside and do the wave while the pastor or reverend is talking. There's a time and a place for everything. So this whole notion of, well, you're a hypocrite. Well, wait a minute. A lot of people that go to church that are men of faith, that are really Christians, they sin every day. So by them going to church and living the word of God, again, does not make them hypocrites. It makes them sinners like the rest of us. But again, I go back to what I am saying. Time and place, what you do at a ball game or a public place like a library does not necessarily mean that you do it or it would be at the same standard as a gentleman's club.
Steve, you'll think I'm joking here, but I dang near got a tear in my eye because Steve Kim, with his best point ever, it's biblically consistent. It's like this show is working. I'm gonna influence. We're gonna get Steve Kim baptized.
Oh, wait a minute. You think you're influencing me? No. I've influenced Fearless. Let's get that very clear.
Oh,
Jeez.
man. Thank you for that, Steve. Scap, are you so shocked that women or there's not major controversy around this Magic City strip club?
I have to say, I'm with Steve. I'm surprised that you're surprised at this point, Jason. Of course, I'm not shocked by this in this modern era that we live in here of women empowerment, which women empowerment, for whatever reason, in the Lord's year of 2026 entails doing whatever you want, obviously, with your body, showing it to whoever you want in whatever kind of a capacity that you choose or please to. So yeah, this is just more, I think, women empowerment and girl power going on right here, Jason. So I'm surprised that you're surprised.
Pastor Brooks, I'm gonna circle back to you. And Shamika, you be ready for an answer here too, because this is specifically a black question. The STD rate for African Americans is astronomical. The HIV rate, it outpaces all other ethnic groups for African Americans. In Atlanta, it's gay, STD, HIV, it's Chocolate City. This is what, and again, Pastor Brooks, you're in Chicago, which I would imagine it's probably similar type numbers, maybe not as bad, but this is like we're calling this our culture and saying how culturally relevant it is. That's probably the most disturbing part of this when I just think about the STD rate, the HIV rate. This is a serious issue, and we're calling it our culture.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. I mean, when you look at society, and especially when you look at entertainment, we see it more and more every day. As you speak about, our culture, there's networks where they have women subjected to violence, abuse consistently as part of the entertainment. Shows like Baddies and these other shows, Ray J has another show, and then you add to that, you got an influx of girls, young ladies now who are rapping, and they're not rapping about, going to a party, having fun, being girls. They're rapping about sex and giving themselves. So the value, the worth of a woman is being lowered. The standard of modesty and a woman curiosity is being taken away. And I think we're seeing that in every aspect. And it's unfortunate because it's only going to get worse if we don't stop it in its tracks. But promotions like this don't do anything to help us. And we need to speak about it. We need to talk about it. And we can't let people continue this cycle. And what you said earlier about Black Lives Matter trying to change the dynamic of the family. This is all part of the play, the liberal agenda, the far left agenda to basically dismantle our whole culture. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And so something has to be continually spoken opposite of the direction that they are trying to take us.
Shamika, you got a thought here?
Yeah, Jason, there used to be a difference between black and the N word. And people would say, you know, those are black people and then those are N words. Now it's like black people want to be synonymous with the N word, which is just synonymous with negative behavior. And that's one of the things that, or reasons why I say I have to unblack myself, because we've just begun to accept all types of foolish behavior. We won't speak out against things that we see are wrong. And if you do, you're demonized for actually saying something about someone who shares the same skin color as you. And it's very frustrating because we can clearly see that this behavior is not okay. We can clearly see that women standing on stage half naked, rapping about sex is not okay. Men with their pants sagging and, talking about shooting things up is not okay. But if you say something against it, you're demonized. And so a lot of people sit quietly, although they know it is not helping us as a culture. And we just, so many people feel like they have to accept it to be in the cool kids club, when in all actuality, the cool kids have a mind of their own and are not leaning towards destruction. But this is what we've kind of promoted. You have young girls who, even 4 and 5 years old, dancing to Sexy Red, thinking that this is the cool thing to do. One of the greatest things my kid's dad ever said to me was, "You will be the first example to these girls of what a woman is." And I say that to every mother out here. You are the first example, or should be, to your daughters of what a woman is. So what does that look like? How do you carry yourself? What are the things that you say? What are your morals? What are your values? Because I can see Cardi B or Sexy Red. I don't feel like they have any real effect on my children, because I was the first example of what a woman was. And you could show them you can look nice and still have class. You don't have to be out here half dressed or half naked in order to get attention. It's about what's in your brain. And you can be smart and be pretty at the same time. But if you're not carrying yourself as that woman, as that mother, then you're going to have what we're seeing now, just degeneracy, and every generation just gets worse.
I'm going to get a final thought from you and Corey on this, and then I'm going to go into more hardcore sports topics. But and respond to this quickly, both of you guys. There was a time when a Louis Farrakhan would come out and condemn this. Minister Farrakhan's now in his 90s. There was probably even a time, a long time ago, Jesse Jackson would have spoken against this. There would have been powerful, prominent ministers, some voice of authority that had credibility within the media that would say, "Hey, man, this is crazy. This is a bridge too far." That's all been, I guess, evaporated. And I want to make sure we put this on IG, Luke. I'm sincerely asking for Philip Anthony Mitchell, 2819 Church in Atlanta. I believe he needs to come out and say something very powerful about this. A lot of black women in his congregation. He's right there in Atlanta. He's the voice. And hopefully he wouldn't, if he says it, I hope he doesn't get forced into backpedaling or whatever. But it seems like we've lost anybody that has any media credibility or platform from a spiritual perspective who would even speak against this. Corey, am I right here?
Yeah, woke ideology has invaded the black church, and I say that, use the term black church very loosely. But as far as the woke ideology invading the theology and the pulpits across our nation, it's preventing black preachers from speaking out on certain topics that we ought to give voice to. So no longer do we have a Minister Louis Farrakhan who would come out and say that we should not subject black women to these type of things. We no longer have preachers saying a word. And so we do need to give voice to it. We do need to speak about it, and we need to be very vocal. And until we do, if we don't, we're going to continue to see this vicious cycle of subjecting women to this harsh marketing over and over again, and the entertainment is going to continue to do what they do. So we got to give voice to it. So I agree. I hope my brother in Atlanta will say something. I'm sure he will, because that's the type of personality that he has, and I'm sure he's going to say something.
Shamika, final thought.
You know, when it comes to Minister Farrakhan, he was taken care of by his own. A lot of modern preachers are bending over for their own, and their own are women, and they're run by women. It would be nice if Pastor Phil speaks out. We'll see if he does. But just nowadays, you see churches actually pushing abortion. They're pushing this whole women's empowerment, that they don't need a man, that they'll be fine without a man. And I just don't see them really standing up the way that they should. I actually feel like woke ideology is taking over the black church, which is why you also see them with gay pastors, and people are celebrating men being married to other men and being so-called bishops of large churches. I just, we'll see. I'm just not hopeful.
Slip, Shamika, and I heard that Freudian slip. Anyway,
you said what?
You had a little Freudian slip there.
What did I say? I'm sorry.
I think you said bitch up.
Oh, I meant to say bishop.
Yeah. We're gonna let you go.
Same thing.
We're gonna let you go on that note. Thank you, Shamika. Gentlemen, I'm going to continue. I'm going to switch up here. Stephen A. Smith and Zion Williamson appear to be beefing. The Pelicans went nuclear in their response. I want to play the clip that has triggered the Pelicans and perhaps Zion Williamson, and then I'm going to surprisingly, I think this will be the third time I've watched it. The first two times I watched this clip, I think I side with Stephen A. Smith. Let's play SOT 5.
The reality of the situation is, I say this respectfully to Zion Williamson, we're very happy for you. But I want to piggyback off of what Perk added, because it's incredibly important. Nothing was made up. The information that emanated about Zion Williamson, it came from inside the organization. It came from people even closer than that to Zion Williamson. I'm going to leave it at that. People that called up and encouraged us to get his ass because of some of the things that he was doing. You got people that are alcoholics. You got people that are drug addicts and stuff like that. What was Zion's problem? Food addict. The joke was everybody in New Orleans that cooked. It could be everybody from a restaurant, a chef, to your grandmama, all right? Anybody that cooked knew about Zion Williamson, and he knew them. They were on a first name basis because that brother ate a lot, okay? You even had rumors, and literally, I'm here thinking it was a joke, and somebody told me to go on the air and point out how he got busted hiding food under his bed. This is the kind of stuff that was happening.
Stephen A's delivery is over the top. His little Jasmine Crockett ghetto shtick is over the top. But I'm not sure if he's completely out of bounds. The Pelicans, I think this is over Twitter. they put out a response. Let's play shot 6.
This man was a bona fide scrub. He can't play. No disrespect whatsoever, but I'm sorry to tell everybody the truth. The man cannot play the game of basketball. He has small hands. He can't catch the ball. He's got bad feet. He can't really move, even though he's mobile. Doesn't really know what he's doing. Doesn't have a post move that he puts to memory that he can do 2 times in a row. He has no game whatsoever. Plays no defense. Doesn't have the heart, the passion, or anything that comes with it.
That was the Pelicans mocking. Steve, do you have a problem with what Stephen A. Smith said?
No, he's been absolutely correct. And I've told you this many times. Zion Williamson in his 5 months at Duke was must-see TV. And I thought this is a guy that could be a pillar of the NBA for the next 12 to 15 years. But we have to be honest about it. Nothing he said was incorrect. I think he's very factual. He's been unreliable, undependable. Look, has Zion been a bust at the level of an Anthony Bennett or a Michael Olowokandi? No, he hasn't. But what it reminds me of are 2 really talented players that simply could not put down the fork. One was John Williams, not Hot Rod, but the one that went to Crenshaw High, and then he went to LSU, and he was nicknamed after his big weight gain, Hot Plate, by Peter Vesey. And Peter Vesey said over Twitter, his crew in LA basically gave him death threats. Like, oh, come on, it's not that important. John Williams was so good as a high school junior at Crenshaw High that Jim Murray said the best point guard in LA is Magic Johnson. The second one is that kid out of Crenshaw High. This guy was a prodigy. Then you have guys like Dinner Bell Mel Turpin. Ate himself out of the league. He was a top 5 pick. Didn't make it. The other one, and at least he put in a real career before blowing up like the Goodyear blimp. Sean Kemp in Cleveland after the lockout. I've never seen a guy that went from so athletic to so rotund. It was sad, but at least he put in a good 7 years. Zion Williamson has been a disappointment. And guys, this is out there, so I'm not taking anything out of context or anything out of bounds. Food has not been his only problem. His choices and other things have been an issue too. You know what they are.
Yeah, women. Scap.
Yeah, Jason, did you produce that video for the Pelicans? Did they commission you? Were you like the behind-the-scenes director of that? I think we need to launch an investigation on that. But in terms of what Stephen A. was saying, I'm with Steve, and I guess seemingly you. I support Stephen. I'm Team Stephen A. on this one. Let me just go into further detail, kind of, to unpack what Zion Williamson has been in the NBA. Honestly, since he's arrived, he has been elite, actually, in the NBA when he's on the court playing actual games. When you look at his career player efficiency rating right now, guys, he is 13th all-time in NBA history. The players just below him, I'll work up from descending order, are Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Kevin Durant, and Charles Barkley. Those are the players just below Zion Williamson in career PER right now. And honestly, I just mentioned the guy in Charles Barkley who had his own infamous struggles with controlling his weight during his playing career. He once was eating Big Macs while riding a stationary bike during practice. But Chuck never really was hampered by injury as much as Zion. Honestly, Chuck never blew up to the degree that Zion Williamson did. This guy has no control, no willpower at all. I talked about what he did on the court. The problem is he seldomly is on the court. He's been in the NBA for 7 years, and in 4 of those 7 years, he has appeared in 30 or less games. There are 82 games in an NBA season. So, availability is the best ability. And this guy has stolen like 300 mil. He has nearly 300 mil in net earnings right now. And he's not even 30. He should be showing up to collect his bi-weekly paychecks with a ski mask because he has stolen that money and he keeps eating himself out of games year in and year out. No, I'm with Stephen. I don't know if Stephen A. was harsh enough on Zion Williamson.
Yeah, I got to side with Stephen A. Smith here. And there are people like, hey, man, he's mocking or pretending like there's some sort of addiction to food. Let me testify. You can be addicted to food. Let me just, Stephen A's not wrong there. Again, you may not like his tone. You may not like the way he ghettos up his delivery as it relates to that, but I don't think he went anywhere out of bounds. And the Pelicans, although I love them stealing our work and, trolling Stephen A. Smith, I think they've overreacted. The hit dog has barked here and let us know that he's dead on about Zion Williamson. Guys, let me move on to LeSean McCoy. Is LeSean McCoy? Yeah, he's on tape here saying that Caitlin Clark is the most influential white athlete of all time. Let's play the clip.
She's one.
Oh.
She's one.
Damn, that
Well,
question.
one say, now,
Caitlin Clark, the most influential white athlete in all of history, Shady McCoy.
It only got to be white.
Caitlin Clark up there, bro.
She is the most influential women's athlete of all time. I think Serena was great for us. She was great.
The greatest.
Who was watching women's basketball? Think about what we're talking about, though.
Nobody, baby.
Yo, you wasn't. You wasn't. He wasn't. Nobody's watching girls basketball. And then we get this girl like Steph Curry. Everybody watching. To this day.
To this day.
Women's basketball is looked at like the NBA, like the NFL. They got their own channels now on ESPN. We talk about them on when was you ever at last time you heard people just talk about women's basketball on TV? Like a real block. Now you see, there's blocks where they're going to talk about Luka and they're going to talk about Caitlin Clark.
True.
Hey.
Think about it.
Most influential white athlete of all time. That's a bridge too far for me. Obviously, Babe Ruth, Joe Montana, Lance Armstrong, even Larry Bird. Tom Brady just retired from football 2 or 3 years ago. I know he wants to go viral. I even put Mickey Mantle. Maybe I should have put Joe DiMaggio. I don't know baseball that well enough to but Caitlin Clark. Steve, your reaction?
On the surface, I thought I was going to completely disagree with old Shady, right? And those athletes that you mentioned are icons. They are more popular than any women's basketball player could ever be. I agree with that. However, keep this in mind. Think about what would happen during this labor negotiation. Let's say it came over the news wire. Caitlin Clark has announced she's pregnant. She's not going to play for a couple of years. What would happen to that league? Those owners would say, every concession we gave in the CBA, take it all back. Take it all back. Now, those other players that you mentioned, when Joe Montana, Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, all those white athletes, when they retired, guess what? The league still had incredible interest. In fact, I would say it continued to grow throughout the years. You take Caitlin Clark away from that W, it's over.
Lance Armstrong, cycling never got super popular, but once Lance Armstrong blew up, cycling kind of disappeared. If there's no Larry Bird, does Magic Johnson elevate to the level that he did? I still think it's a bridge too far. Scap, your thoughts?
I see a lot of heinous and reprehensible takes throughout the day on a day in and day out basis in sports. This, honestly, it's one of the worst I've ever seen in my entire life. So I guess I got to applaud. I got to tip my cap to LeSean McCoy for I guess, making history, at least in my own sports viewership here. I'm just at a loss for words, quite frankly. Like all the guys that you mentioned, Jason, undeniably, I think Tom Brady, this is kind of a hot take right here, guys. I think Tom Brady is actually the greatest athlete of all time. And for sports, in terms of team sports, I think that his gap, his separation from like number 2 in his sport is more pronounced, more extreme, and more vast than anybody in any other sport. That includes Wayne Gretzky's separation in the NHL, Michael Jordan's separation in the NBA. Look, Tom Brady, I see, Jason, your eyes are getting very wide here. So let me just kind of break this down real quick for you. Tom Brady has more yards and more touchdowns than anybody in league history. A guy would have to average for 20 straight years 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns a year for 20 years to eclipse Tom Brady in
They
yards.
illegalized defense during his era. Go ahead, Scott.
Hold on now. More wins in the regular season than anyone. Now, but here's the money spot right here for you, Jason. He has 35 playoff wins. That is more than any other franchise other than the Cowboys.
They play
Steelers,
more
Packers, and
playoff
Niners.
games in this expanded NFL. Continue. I don't want to cut you off. Continue.
Joe Montana has 16. Okay, Tom Brady has 35. Think about that. Patrick Mahomes is number 2 with 17. So Mahomes and Montana cumulatively still have less than Tom Brady. And finally, Brady, 10 Super Bowl appearances, 7 wins. That is also 7 wins in 20 years as a starter, more than any franchise in league history, which is about 60 years since the AFL-NFL merger. Essentially, Tom Brady's resume in the NFL is what you would have if LeBron James's stats married with Bill Russell's team success in the NBA. If you put those two guys' resumes together, that's Tom Brady. That's how undeniably excellent and dominant that guy was for 20 years. But look, we're not really talking about best, right? This is kind of a battle of semantics. We're talking about influential.
Well, you changed the conversation now, Scap. So let us respond to that before you move on to the actual question I asked. Steve, is Scap right that Tom Brady is the greatest athlete of all time?
No, he might be the greatest quarterback. I don't think he is. I still have Joe Montana. You could actually tackle and maul quarterbacks back then. Look, the greatest athlete of my generation, of my lifetime, is Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And I don't even think it's particularly close. From the time in his third year, the year after the broken foot, from 86, 87, all the way to the time he retired as a Chicago Bull, he was the most famous, popular, and best player on both ends of the court. And I think Bobby Knight said it best. Bobby Knight said during the summer of 84, they're going through the Olympic trials, and they had 8 exhibition games against NBA Players Association. They won all 8 games. Near the end of that camp, Bobby Knight made a statement. He said, this is the greatest basketball player of all time. People thought he was nuts. And he said, I'm just telling you, watch. Bobby Knight, about 5 years later, was on David Letterman's show. And he said, I'm going to say one thing about Jordan. I think he's the greatest in his chosen field beyond sports, and by a good bit. I find it hard to disagree with how good he is.
Look, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has undeniably a better resume than Michael Jordan. He's been to 10 finals. He won 6, same as Michael Jordan. He's won more league MVPs than Michael Jordan. He has 6. His standard box counting stats are better. Kareem is top 3 in 4 of the major standard box numbers. I'm not saying that Jordan isn't the GOAT. He is by far my individual GOAT. But Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has a pretty sound, I think, argument against Michael Jordan. And look, Steve, even people are touting LeBron James. So there is no conversation. Please present your case for Joe Montana over Tom Brady. That is lunacy that you would suggest that anybody else is in the same stratosphere as Tom Brady.
Well, I believe it was a more difficult era. Quarterbacks were not protected to the level. Neither were the wide receivers as they are today. But let me go back to Kareem. I love Kareem. He's the greatest center ever. And here's the problem with Kareem. Before Magic Johnson came into his life, this was just becoming him stat padding in L.A. I mean, look, I give Kareem credit. He won the MVP the year the Lakers won it in Magic's rookie year. People overlooked that. And he probably should have been the finals MVP. But the previous 4 years in L.A., prior to Magic, it was a slog, as I've told Jason, an absolute slog. But going back to Jordan, the greatest stat I can say about Jordan is this. In the decade of the 90s, every year that he started the year and ended the year as a Chicago Bull, they were the NBA champions.
Steve,
Chicago Bulls.
No
one has dominated to that. Maybe Bill Russell, but Bill Russell had, 8 teams in it? Come on, it's different.
Steve, they were not going to win either of those series against the Houston Rockets. All right, Jordan came back. He came back in the 95 season. They got worked by the Magic in the semis, and then the Magic went and got obliterated by Hakeem Olajuwon. 4-0 swept. The Bulls, their big problem was weakness underneath the basket during that time in the front court. Hakeem Olajuwon would have abused the Chicago Bulls. Michael Jordan saved. No one's as big of a Jordan fan as me. He saved his legacy by retiring for that full season in 94 and then coming back with only 17 games so people could utilize that as an excuse for him not winning in 95. Because Hakeem, the 2 years that he had in 94 and 95, he was going to win those titles whether Michael Jordan was in the NBA or not.
I've never heard anybody say
he was in
this.
the NBA in 95.
I've never heard anybody say this, and so I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
Pastor Brooks, I'm sorry you had to hear that as someone that lives in Chicago, and you may get questioned for even sitting through this conversation without objecting. We will say a prayer for you, Skap, and for Pastor Brooks. Don't visit O Block anytime soon, Skap.
Well, by the way, about Brady, there's a thing called Deflategate and
stop, Steve.
The cheating allegation.
Pastor Brooks wants to jump in.
Look, when he was suspended, hold on. He was suspended 4 games for that. And what happened when he came back after that 4-game suspension? 12-0. And then he came back. That was the year he came back from 28-3 in the Super Bowl, late in the third quarter. With who were his wide receivers? Julian Edelman was his leading wide receiver in that game. Gronk wasn't even playing in that game. James White and Julian Edelman were the leading wide receivers in a Super Bowl. That Tom Brady came back 28-3 late in the third. Steve, stop. You're stretching. You are. This is such a reach for you right now.
Ding. Go ahead, Steve.
Joe Montana in his first Super Bowl, his receivers were the relatively unknown Dwight Clark. The other guy was Freddie Solomon. I believe the running backs was a guy by the name of Ricky Patton. That's some other journeyman, Earl Cooper. And
what
he
about
won
Jerry
2 Super
Rice?
Bowls pre-Jerry
on?
Rice. So I'm just, look, I believe Brady is one of the all-time greats. But I've seen both of them. I believe the difference is Joe Montana had more athleticism and could use his legs and feet a little bit more effectively.
I actually think John Elway is the greatest quarterback to ever play, but I'm not going there.
Well, no one's ever said that.
I'm not going. Gentlemen, I'm gonna have to let y'all go. I'm gonna give Pastor Brooks the final say here. He wanted to answer the original question about Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, I was thinking about Caitlin Clark, and I chalked this up to LeSean McCoy, who I like, had a great career, good career, but his youthfulness. I mean, I don't even know if Caitlin Clark is on the top 3 list of white women as far as influential athletes. I mean, you got Nancy Lieberman, you got Martina Navratilova, Billie Jean King. I mean, there's a long, I forget the name of the sister who won all the Olympic gold medals. There's a list that she may not even be in the top 3 females. So she's definitely not the most influential white athlete that ever lived.
I'm sorry I made room for him to make that comment, and now you're blaspheming Caitlin Clark on this show. I want to apologize to my audience. Caitlin Clark.
I love Caitlin Clark. Don't get me wrong. I love Caitlin Clark, and but I just don't know if she's the most influential.
Gentlemen, I got to let you go. I got to get to Danny Kanell. Thank you, Skap and Steve. Pastor Brooks, I'm not going to make you sit through me and Danny Kanell, so I do want to ask you about Project Hood and your walk and how it's going. I went to the event last night. I finally donated to Project Hood. It's very easy. You just go to projecthood.org. It'll pop up on your screen. If I was able to figure it out and donate, you should be able to figure it out and donate. It's a worthy event. I think I signed my name to my donation, so any of you guys that go to Project Hood, you can see that I'm not bluffing and telling you that I actually did. Anyway, update us on your walk and what else you got planned here in the Nashville area.
So first of all, thanks to Jason for hosting us last night, him and Bishop Walker here in Nashville for a fundraiser. We're presently in Monroe, Louisiana, but we drove a car to Nashville for the fundraiser. We're getting ready to drive back to Monroe, Louisiana to continue our walk, and we will arrive in Santa Monica, California on September the 19th to have a big celebration. So we're walking across America. Our goal is to raise $25 million, finish building a center on the south side of Chicago, 90,000 square feet, leadership and economic opportunity center that's transforming our community, build a school for girls and boys, create an endowment so that we don't have to depend on government. So we're walking, we're on a mission. It's for a purpose. And I'm grateful to have people like Jason Whitlock supporting us. So all of you who support us, thank you so much. ProjectHood.org.
Thank you for coming over. Hope you brought last night he told me, I'm going to bring 2 guys. He brought 6. And I had to feed them all.
Yeah.
So add that to my tab as well.
When you say you're going to Jason Whitlock's house for his podcast, everybody wants to go. I had people calling, trying to beat down the door. I said I can't take everybody. I can only take a few. Everybody wants to see Jason Whitlock. So,
thank you, Pastor Brooks. You guys don't go anywhere. Oh, last thing before I get to Danny Kanell, make sure you go to fearlessmission.com and become a supporter to everything we're doing here. You need to be a subscriber to Blaze TV and everything we're doing here. Use the promo code FEARLESS for $20 off your annual subscription. I think that'll get you down to $80. But if you want the kind of provocative, honest, bold commentary that we do here on Fearless, you got to be willing to get in the game and ante up. There are voices out trying to destroy. Voices like mine, voices like Pastor Brooks, voices like Ali Beth Stuckey. You got to hop on board with us in a real way. It's only $80 a year with my promo code FEARLESS. Please go to fearlessmission.com. Don't go anywhere. Danny Kanell and some football talk. X. David Stern came in with an indecent proposal. And I know David Stern is very celebrated, but he basically said, hey, let's break up the relationship between college basketball in the NBA, and I'm so greedy, and we want all the basketball money here domestically. We want it all flowing through all the TV contracts. We want to be the king of the basketball universe, and in order to be the king, we must diminish college basketball. And David Stern saw college basketball as a competitor and made an indecent proposal, like, let's bring in the young guys to the one and dones, the straight out of high school. Let's bring them into the NBA. Let's rip the talent out of college basketball so that the best basketball is clearly played here in the National Basketball Association.
These words are our religion, no regrets in our decisions. We all want to go to heaven with freedom. It's my obligation, no hate, discrimination, raising up your hands for freedom.
As promised, welcome back. Danny Kanell joining us as he does virtually every Wednesday. Danny, the Arizona Cardinals have made it clear they're moving on from Kyler Murray at the start of the league year. I think that's next week. I'm not surprised by this. And when I say that, I'm talking about I didn't like Kyler Murray coming out of college. I didn't like his attitude. I didn't like the threat of baseball. I certainly didn't like the fact that he's 5'7", 5'8". I never saw this working. What do you think of the Kyler Murray era in Arizona?
Oh, I think it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride, but I would say it's been filled with more disaster, more of those falls than it has with success. I mean, there have been glimpses of his ability, but his inability to stay healthy, his inability to stay consistent, and really his lack of understanding and lack of maturity to understand what it takes to be a professional quarterback is probably the most disappointing thing. Because I do think even at his size, he is an electric runner. He's shown the capability of making some of these throws. And one of the more bizarre things I've ever seen was a starting quarterback in the NFL. And this was in the aftermath of his contract where they had the clause. He was giving an interview and went on the record and said, I don't need as much film as other guys because of my athleticism. Like, I just see and react. That is not a recipe for success in the NFL. I don't care how gifted you are, how great a runner you think you are, what a great improviser you think you are. You've got to win with your brain. You've got to win with your knowledge of the game, with being able to predict what defenses are going to do, anticipate different looks, check out of certain looks to get into better protections, check out of certain runs. It is like when we say full-time job, it is in the aspect that you're in there from 9 to 5. But if you're a franchise starting quarterback, you should really be in there a couple days a week from 7 to 7, like 12-hour days, and even you're taking some of the work home with you. I mean, you have to make a ton of sacrifices if you want one of the best 32 jobs in the world. And I don't think Kyler Murray ever fully grasped that. I don't think, he ever got what it took to be a professional quarterback. And the only thing I don't know, because everyone's looking for the next Sam Darnold. Everybody's looking for the next Baker Mayfield. I think those guys, and Baker's talked about this, and I've actually appreciated Baker talking about it from a spiritual standpoint. He said, God stripped me of everything, and, I had struggles in my marriage. I was selfish. And he had the spiritual awakening. Sam Darnold's been somebody who's, needed a right situation, but I guarantee you the adversity those two guys faced made them work harder. If Kyler Murray approaches this that way, I think it could work, but am I going to trust him with that? Not from anything I've heard of him. I've never heard him take accountability for any of the lack of success. And if I heard that, maybe I'd be willing to listen, but I would not touch Kyler Murray as a free agent, especially if I was looking for somebody either to mentor a young quarterback or to actually be the starter. I don't know how you can trust him.
We go to these combines and people want to act like what's said at the combine or what these athletes just say in general, it doesn't matter. And we're always giving them the benefit of the doubt. And I think we should take them at their word. And so when Kyler Murray said, hey, I don't need film study, or when Kyler Murray, I'll go play baseball, these are all red flags. Like, you have a chance to be a franchise quarterback in the only sport that really, really matters. It's the greatest position in all of sports. Didn't used to be that way, but now it is. And you're talking, and I know people say, well, John Elway did the same thing. Well, John Elway's 6'3", and he's, the greatest prospect we've ever seen. And it was more of a bluff. I thought Kyler Murray, the way he handled his college career with his dad involved, then what comes out of his mouth. And then, the guy's 5'9". We've never seen that in the NFL where that has worked and has won Super Bowls. He's probably made $150 million plus while never accomplishing anything. I just think we need to take these people at their word, all of these athletes. I go back to Cam Newton, who had as much talent as anybody that's ever played football. He came out of the combine, and there was the story about him wanting to be an icon. And people, Peter King brought it up, and people got all upset. But it was a clue into the mindset of Cam Newton. And I know he won an MVP, and I know he was a big star it took a team to a Super Bowl. But Cam Newton did not reach his full NFL potential. And so I just don't have a problem with putting a little red flag next to guys and saying, I wouldn't touch him. I'm going to spend a bunch of money, but he's never going to reach his full potential because he's not all in.
No, I feel like life is an IQ test oftentimes, and I definitely think the NFL draft evaluation is an IQ test. The answers you're talking about at the combine, drug testing in the NFL. I know it's gotten lax, but it used to be you just couldn't smoke weed for about a 30-day period, and you kind of knew that period, so you just had to be careful. And if you failed it really was just an IQ test. You had to be incredibly stupid. If you failed a drug test at the combine, you had to be incredibly stupid. Like, that's the biggest interview of your life. And when Kyler Murray was at Radio Row, it was in Miami, I was working on Mad Dog, and we had him on the set. And it was pre-draft, pre-combine. He's just finishing up his career. And I asked him about baseball. And Jason, I'm telling you, he had not prepared at all for what he was going to say. And I think later he went on Dan Patrick, and he gave this, like you were saying, I don't know. Like, it was like he hadn't thought about it, and it wasn't coached up, or even somebody would say to him, hey, you have to give a definitive answer, a definitive reason of what you're going to do. And ultimately, it didn't scare anybody off, but I remember thinking, I don't want my franchise quarterback to be that ill-prepared for an interview with a very obvious question. Everyone had been asking about it. Everyone had been talking about it. And he comes out there and gives this indecisive answer that brings in some doubt about how committed he was to the NFL. I was floored. I was like, I cannot believe he just gave me that for an answer. Like, it was so unprepared, and I felt it was like a first red flag that you're talking about. I still think he could get it done because he has shown those windows. So I might be a little bit, the 5'9" quarterbacks have not been great, right? Bryce
What's
Young
he going to
somebody
get done,
else.
Danny? When you say get it done, I thought winning the Super Bowl, do you think this guy could lead a team to a Super Bowl?
Yeah, because I think, I do. If you put him in the right situation, I think he could. Do I trust him to do that? Would I want him to be that quarterback? No. And I think that the situation
We give him
would
the
have to be
85
perfect.
Bears. Is that what you want? You want to give? You give him the 85 Bears?
Yes.
Mike Singletary,
or the Ravens with Trent Dilfer.
Yeah.
Or do you have a great run game? But he's always going to have that improvisational mindset. Is he just going to trust the system? So I think he could. So I don't want to slam the door on it, but I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't want it. And that's what the Vikings are a trendy pick right now. Like, I actually probably like him more than J.J. McCarthy, who I did not like coming out of Michigan. He's the right size, but I had never seen him put the team on his back and carry a team to a victory. He was very much a game manager. I've seen Kyler Murray put the team on his back, probably too much so, but it hasn't been too consistent. You have to be consistent at this level.
Let me just say this: how I prefer him over J.J. McCarthy. I wanted to tell you how that strikes me. That's like, well, I prefer Jasmine Crockett over Lizzo. That's how that sounds.
Right. The options are not great. There are a lot of other quarterbacks that I would like. Here's one I think this is crazy because I don't know. I just heard it. I don't know how much validity it is. Saying, Indianapolis, what a great fit that could be for Kyler Murray. I'm like, they just transition tagged Daniel Jones, so they're going to keep him. And if it was Daniel Jones or Kyler Murray, I'm taking Daniel Jones all day long. I think that's what the Colts are realizing as well. So my thoughts you make a great point because it's not great options. But if I'm Minnesota and I'm looking at them and there aren't great options out there, like would you rather have Tua or Kyler Murray? Not great options. I'd probably take Tua because I trust him more of being able to maybe get that motivational chip on his shoulder. Again, not great options, but I would lean towards Tua a little bit more.
Look, when you're paying people $150, $200 million over a 5, 6, 7 year window, you want them to prepare. And this kid doesn't like to prepare. He's, you can get it. Look, Danny, I wasn't a great athlete. You were. We've talked in the past that you had to learn that lesson about, hey, I got to prepare because when you're blessed with that talent and everything comes really easy to you. I saw Jeff George, his first 4 or 5 years in the NFL, not prepare properly. And then the switch went off, and he had developed a reputation. But by the time he got to Oakland, he loved preparing. And he wasted 4 or 5 years, but became a different person and had the reputation, and it haunted him, that reputation. But, you went through it with sports coming easy to you, and you
Absolutely. I did not because I won in high school. I didn't start playing football till my junior year of high school. We won the state championship my first year. I went to Florida State, waited 2 years, stepped in. We won right away. Even with the New York Giants, drafted, get my opportunity. We sub in, we go to the playoffs, like 8-2-1 as a starter. I wasn't doing anything differently because I was like, hey, it's been working the whole time. And I didn't learn until it was too late, and I didn't have freakishly, talented gifts. I didn't have a Jeff George type arm or the ability like Kyler Murray. So I really didn't see that second chance opportunity because I wasn't ready. When I was 28, 29 years old and finally realized what it took, it was almost too late. And, ironically, I got cut when I was a better player than when the Giants did, and they paid me a contract. It was that always has kind of fascinated me with how that works. And another reason why I'm blown away when guys come into the NFL and they're ready from day one. They're pros. They get in at 6 a.m. They do all the prep work. But the one thing I will say, like Jeff George is a great example because I think his reputation was awful. I had always heard that as a player. Selfish, doesn't do the work. He's just a freakishly gifted player. But you said the switch came on. That's what I wonder, and I honestly would hope that Kyler Murray, the switch would come on for him. But it can go one or two ways. You can be motivated by the criticism, or you could be the victim. Oh, I got screwed. They didn't give me the opportunity. I had multiple coaches. I had injuries around me. I got injured. And then you don't really learn the lesson. So that's kind of where I'm like, where I still leave the door open a little bit. But Kyler Murray doesn't have Jeff George's arm. He doesn't have that type of talent. So there's already some other red flags besides just his attitude and his lack of work ethic.
Danny, you were a baseball prospect as well. What if Kyler Murray wanted to flip to baseball? What would you think of that?
It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock
Could
me
he
at
do
all.
it?
I haven't watched him enough. I mean, size isn't as much of a barrier. He was, what round pick was he? Wasn't he like a sixth? I mean, he was a very high draft pick.
First
I
round
was
pick.
not.
Top 10 pick in the
Yeah, I think he
Major
was
League
6
Baseball.
overall. Like,
Yeah,
I think he was pretty electric.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously he's got some skills that the team was willing to take that risk on him. So I don't know enough about him. I do think in any professional sport, everyone's gifted, right? Everyone's got the 5 tools as a baseball player. You still have to work at it, right? Now, maybe positionally you're not
prepare?
a pitcher.
You got
Yes,
to
you have
work, but do you have to prepare in baseball? I really don't know.
Not as much as you do as a franchise quarterback. If he was a pitcher, I would say the way they study, opposing batters, it's probably the most similar. But if you're a position player, I don't think it's anywhere near the, baseball IQ. We always use football IQ. I don't think that's as much as a concern in baseball. But you still, I think that's what separates guys from just play a couple years in the bigs versus guys that play 10 to 15 as position players. They start studying the pitchers and they start studying tendencies, especially now with all the analytics that are at your disposal and being able to watch film of opposing pitchers and arm angles and the littlest tips of where he's holding his glove for a fastball versus an off-speed pitch. All those things I do think come into play, but I don't think it's as much of a concern, But I think a team, especially knowing where he was drafted, probably would give him another opportunity.
You've already referenced Daniel Jones. The Colts put a transition tag on him. Feel like they're still going to try to work a deal for a contract. I'm somewhat sold on Daniel Jones, a healthy Daniel Jones. I think this is a smart play for the Colts, going all in on Daniel Jones. Your thoughts?
And officially going all out on Anthony Richardson. That was kind of the other news of the combine last week. Like, they're ready to move on. I thought that was the highest risk pick of that draft, and it's turned out to be the risk. It did not get the reward from him. So I think I like Daniel Jones. I mean, he was playing at an MVP caliber type year through 8 games, 9 games. Then he starts getting banged up. Remember, he had 2 injuries before he got left out for the season. He was dealing with this broken bone in his leg. I mean, he was playing. He's tough as nails, and he was playing great. And Colts have given this. I do think he's a player who needs the run game like the Colts were giving him, who give him a good support, around him, play good defense. And there were a couple games when I think it was Pittsburgh pressured him, and it kind of flashbacks of the New York Giant days when it was a little bit more up and down. I still think that's there. From the money perspective, I think it would have to be something similar to what Baker Mayfield got in Tampa, which I think was around $33 million a year, I think, which is a ton of money, but it's nowhere near 55 or 60, which they're giving, most of these franchise quarterback starters. And if it was, 3 years on paper, but in actuality, a 2-year deal where you're kind of letting him prove that he has staying power and that he is taking the next steps, I think that's probably the deal that makes the most sense for both. And I think Indianapolis is a great fit for Daniel Jones. I think they've kind of fit well together. I thought it was a great opportunity for him to get some starting time. And because of what they do with Jonathan Taylor, I think it's a good fit for what they both want from each other.
Dan, I'm going to keep it moving. I want to play you this clip of Cam Newton talking about the 2026 draft class. He calls it the worst in 2 decades.
This is the absolute worst quarterback draft class in the last 2 decades. And you want to know who's to blame? Who is it? Arch Manning.
He ain't even in this draft class.
Exactly. He was supposed to be. What Arch Manning was supposed to be was everything that Fernando Mendoza was.
National championship.
All-American, Heisman.
Face of college football.
All the above. Generational talent. The athleticism and the running ability of his grandfather, Archie. He had the throwing power and the throwing ability as his uncle, Eli. And he was supposed to be and is as cerebral as his other uncle, Peyton. This is not a beat on Arch Manning not being a good football player. This debate is about Arch Manning not developing fast enough to be what everybody, including myself, expected him to be. When we look at this year's draft, you got Fernando Mendoza, you got Todd Simpson, Nussmeier, Carson Beck, Diego Pavia. You got all these different quarterbacks that it's like, okay. I don't really see no franchise quarterbacks. I just don't see it. Now hear this out though.
All right.
The decision for Arch Manning to go back to Texas now can potentially put the 2027 quarterback class better than we probably have ever seen. It was an aggressive take by saying Arch Manning is to blame, but what Arch Manning really did was bolster potentially the greatest quarterback draft ever in the history of drafts. You have Arch Manning, you have Dante Moore, you have Trinidad Chambliss, Norris Sellers, Julian Sayin. Those guys are loaded. The best draft class ever, in my honest opinion, in the last 20 years.
He missed his calling. Cam should have been an actor. I mean, maybe he still will. The delivery is off the charts, and his social media team, they do a phenomenal job. I mean, he is over the top. It is
I'm
entertaining.
glad you said that because Cam thinks all I do is hate on him, but the guy is talented. I just wish if he could stay between the lines. But anyway, let's start with his contention. This is the worst QB draft class. And I want to start by, do we have a graphic of the 2022? Yeah, let's put this up, where I think Kenny Pickett was the only guy in the first round. Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis, who people still want to pay, Matt Corral, Bailey Zappi, Sam. I mean, this is just Brock Purdy's the best quarterback. Yeah, he's the last pick, Mr. Irrelevant.
Yep.
How is this draft class worse than that draft class?
It's at least on par. It is not a good class. Like I would agree with a lot of Cam said. Now I think Fernando Mendoza lifts it up. Like, is he going to have the success that Brock Purdy had? Brock Purdy's already been to the Super Bowl. Like, is Fernando Mendoza? I mean, Brock Purdy's a true franchise quarterback, right? Can you get one from this class? I hope so. The Raiders better think they do. And I think that Fernando Mendoza will succeed. I think they're both bad. I have a worse class, though, than all of them.
Last 20 years or overall?
Oh, well, 25.
All right, what?
My class. The 96 quarter. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
You know how many first-round picks there were at quarterback? 0. That is a goose egg. The first quarterback taken in the 96 draft was Tony Banks out of Michigan State. All right? Next
Bad
quarterback
pick.
taken was a third-rounder named Jeff Lewis from Northern Arizona, who is no longer with us, unfortunately. Never really started, never really got the opportunity. Fourth round, Bobby Hoying out of Ohio State. Started for a minute for the Eagles, but really didn't get any legs, didn't get any traction. Fourth round, myself, a little bit of starting time, really didn't catch on as a franchise quarterback, and that was it. That was one of the worst quarterback classes of all time, was mine. So if you ever really want a barometer of just how bad it can get, go look at that 96 class. It was atrocious.
Well, back then, people didn't
teams would use restraint. They wouldn't.
People didn't overdraft quarterbacks.
Right.
And again, I like Fernando Mendoza. I love all the intangibles about him. I think he's a second-round pick that's going to go at the top of the draft. So I get where Cam is coming from. All right, now the second part of his deal is that next year is going to be an all-time great class. Do you see that?
I have a bigger problem with that one. because I do not agree. I mean, I feel like we hear this every year. Wait till next year. Wait till next year. Now, I am a believer in Arch Manning. I think he's uber talented. I think he could be that guy that's going to be talked about like his uncles, like Trevor Lawrence, like, Andrew Luck. He will. I promise you. He has played. He really improved this season. I thought he handled the pressure and adversity extremely well. You can say all you want. He's got a big arm. He's got the legs. I think he's the total package.
I don't think he has a big arm. I think he's an athlete. I think he's going to be a bit injury prone. And so, comparing him to his two uncles, I think that's crazy. Peyton Manning's in the conversation, a top 5 quarterback all
But I
time.
don't think Peyton had a super arm. I don't think Eli had a super arm. I don't think they had mega arms. Again, yeah, you're right. Beat it with his brain. But I do think that's where Arch, and that's why he went to Texas to play with Sark, because Sark is an offensive mind who's coached in the NFL, who has a lot on the quarterback's plate. So I do think Arch is a very cerebral quarterback as well. Now, the other one, This is where I would disagree with Cam, because he brought up Dante Moore, who most mock drafts thought was going to be the number 2 overall pick. So why did he go back to Oregon? We got to take the mock drafts with a grain of salt, because if you go back over the course of time, there are some doozies on there. I go Matt Barkley, when he was at USC, was projected to be a first-round pick. I think he ended up going 5th round. Spencer Rattler, I remember when he was at Oklahoma, before he transferred and got beat out by Caleb Williams, was projected as a top 10 pick. We see these projections all the time. I think the reason Dante Moore went back to Oregon is because he wasn't hearing the same projections from the NFL community. Once they looked at his tape, they weren't seeing him as the number 2 overall pick. So I think there was some doubt about that. His tape is good. It's not great. I think he reminds me sort of a Jordan Love. It's very natural. He's got a really tight motion, but I think he has to play better this year. Julian Sain was off the charts all season long until he played against some better competition. Then he didn't look outstanding. He's not going to physically impress you too much with the arm or the body type. And then I just look at some of these other guys, who else did Cam mention in that class? Because there's like DJ Lagway.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, DJ Lagway, who was at Florida, was a 5-star everything. Well, it didn't work out at Florida. Now he's going to Baylor. I think there's more of a chance he would bust. There's a kid at Lenoris Sellers at South Carolina, was supposed to be all that this year. He is physically insane. You look at him, he fits the part. He hasn't played great. He played awful last year. I don't think he's going to play his way into this conversation either. So we can say this all the time. Oh, wait till next year. We start to project because guys were 5 stars, because they're 6'4", and they run 4.5s. You still have to go out and play. And I think there's a lot of guys that have been exposed as just big potential guys, but they haven't backed it up. It might be a class, and I think they'll be stronger than this season, but to say it's the all-time greatest class, I'm not buying that yet at all.
Let's put up your list. Danny's got a list of top 10 college quarterbacks for this upcoming season. You have Arch Manning, 1.
Now, this is not a draft. This is college quarterbacks, who I trust kind of coming into the season.
Perfect. Arch Manning, Julian Sain, what's his
Darian Mensah.
Darian Mensah, Dante Moore, CJ Carr. You can see the list. Yep. Anyway, take Darian Mensah. Is and again, I know we're not talking about him as a draft prospect, but as part of your evaluation that, hey, he's going to Miami and he's going to be playing with more talented guys than he did at Duke, and so that elevates him?
Yes, and I've covered him quite a few times, watched a lot of his game tape. So he was at Tulane. Remember, he was at Tulane where he first started. He won there with lesser talent around him, made some big plays. At Duke, he was able to win at Duke. Now, he had a couple bad games. He had 2 or 3 interceptions versus UConn, one of their worst losses of the season. Against Illinois, they lost. They were in the game. He had 4 red zone turnovers, a couple fumbles in that one that really hurt him. But just as a thrower of the football, I think he's going to have more success than Carson Beck did at Miami, just throwing the football. But that is about him being in the best supporting cast that he's been in his career. So I would expect him to clean up some of the mistakes, to clean up some of the interceptions, to get more accurate. He's going to have better protection. Miami has crushed it with what they're putting around him. So that's more of a, I trust what he's been because he's been really good. I think he's going to take that next step once he's given even better surroundings. Shannon Dawson's a really good offensive coordinator at Miami. Malachi Toney, the freshman last year, tore it up. He's coming back, as is their running back, Mark Fletcher. So he's got a lot of talent around him, which is one of the reasons I had him so high.
Does the same apply to Josh Hoover?
Yes.
Moving to Indiana,
sure.
And Kirk Signetti.
And he's absolutely, because I do think, quietly, I don't know if people understand, Indiana, it's still hard to say and believe that Indiana is a top spender in college football. They're spending money out there for their portal class this year. Once again, is a top 10 portal class. They've brought in some incredible talent to put around him. And I do think there are some similarities. The thing I feel bad for him, this is somebody I can relate to this. I had to step in after Charlie Ward when he left, so I was the next guy. And we were this juggernaut, so people were expecting us to keep win. And if you lose one game or you have a game where you throw an interception or two, it's like, well, what happened to that? Unfortunately for Josh Hoover, that's my biggest concern is how does he handle those expectations and being the guy, and he's got to follow Fernando Mendoza, who brings them their first title and their first national championship. But he's been a high-volume thrower at TCU. Their defense wasn't great. I think he'll get more stability. And here's where his interceptions are a little higher than you would like, but I think those were a lot of games where they're trying to come back, trying to make a little bit more desperate throws. He's got to clean those up, but I think he will with better supporting cast.
It's I don't know what I don't. Everybody, I think, mostly agrees with you as it relates to Arch Manning, but I just keep looking at this list, and I just can't get comfortable with Arch Manning at the top of it. I just. There's something about his arm strength. There's something about his decision making. There's something about I still question his toughness, I guess, a little bit. Just that film of him in high school playing against all them suburban kids still spooks me. But I don't know. I can't wrap my. I get it. This is a great list of quarterbacks that have really done some things, and to me, Arch Manning, and maybe I'm crazy, I think of him as a disappointment last season.
So I think if you would have shut off the season after the Florida game, that was 5 games. So 5 games in, he was very pedestrian. I remember texting some buddies of mine thinking, what is wrong with Arch? He was missing layups, missing easy. You could tell Sark was trying to dial up plays that were confidence builders, right? Give him a short hitch, a screen route, and he's airmailing them. Just wide open guys, airmailing them. Really some ill-advised, throws that he made. I still think you had to remember he had only started a handful of games before last season. So, and full disclosure, last year, coming into the season, a lot of people had Arch number 1. I was very skeptical, saying, don't do it. I got to see him develop. I want to see how he handles the pressure, and, felt pretty vindicated through that. But then this season, one of the reasons I feel so different is I do think he had the game against Mississippi State where they were down 24. And sometimes when you're faced with that type of situation, it's like it can't get any worse. Just cut it loose. And he did. And he brought his team all the way back, and they won the game. And I felt from that moment on, it was like a real pivotal point in his career. Because if he would have lost that game, who knows? Sark was getting criticized for his play calling. Fans are wondering, when is Dia Bell going to get there? Their freshman coming in this season. They were ready to move on from him. But instead, he wins that game. He gets that under his belt. He beats Vanderbilt, has a big game against them, only loses the game against Georgia where he wasn't awful. He wasn't great, but he wasn't awful. And then they win out. So from that moment, the Mississippi State, fourth quarter comeback, I thought it was a huge confidence boost for him. And again, I feel better because of how bad he played early, and he was able to play his way out of it. I feel better that he's faced some adversity. I've always told people the only way I like to evaluate quarterbacks is after they've been through adversity, because it's easy to go out there when everything's perfect and you're completing 70% of your passes. Julian Saint's a great example. I picked Indiana to beat Ohio State because things were too perfect for Julian Saint. We hadn't seen him get sacked 5 times. We hadn't seen him throw a crucial interception, and he did in that game, and it cost him. I wanted to see how you bounce back, and I thought for Arch to bounce back from that rough start really made me that much more of a believer in him this year, as somebody who was really skeptical of him last year.
I'm going to combine these two topics. The state of Mississippi has basically joined the rest of the SEC in eliminating personal income tax for NIL athletes. I want to combine it with Donald Trump just recently hosted a meeting with Nick Saban and others, a roundtable about college sports. And, first thing I saw when I saw this about Mississippi, I was like, man, somebody's got to do something. Man, we're just pandering to these athletes and giving them everything. And it's like, well, some state is going to pass a law. You get 32 virgins if you commit to one of our schools. Yep. Blah, blah. You get your way at all the sorority houses. Blah, blah. It's just getting out of hand. And to me, Donald Trump, the politicians are going to have to get involved here to clean up college sports. Agree or disagree?
Barring a whole new system, I mean, because those are the two options, right? Either Congress gets involved or we go to a true employee model where there's a union and you get a collectively bargained agreement like we have in pro sports, which I do think a lot of coaches have gotten on board with that. Now, the schools, the administrators, do not want that to happen because it's the most expensive option. So they would love for Congress to get involved. This is not surprising to me. We've seen laws changed in Florida, where I live, and Texas. If you remember Quinn Ewers, who was in high school in Texas, you remember the reason he went to Ohio State and he enrolled early? Because in Texas, you weren't allowed to accept NIL money in high school. Guess what law has been changed in Texas? You are now allowed to get paid in high school. Same thing in Florida. It used to be illegal. Now it is legal. Mississippi's looking around. They're saying, well, Florida has no state income tax. Neither does Texas. Neither does Arizona. These schools we're competing for. Why are we at a disadvantage? Deep down, I wonder how a resident of Mississippi feels who's, maybe making minimum wage and they're seeing a state income tax out they're like, what? Wait a second. That kid's making $1 million and they're letting him just get off scot-free. I don't love that. But you're right. I mean, it's the biggest flaw is why we need some federal legislation, because I think there's 30 different, states that have different NIL laws like this one, like the state, like being paid as a high schooler or not. So there does need to be it. But I have very little confidence that it's going to get done. Even with this roundtable, which may or may not happen now because of what's going on in the global scale, even the politicians, much like everything else, there are two factions that are kind of developing in what's the correct way to move forward with some of this legislation. You've got Cory Booker on one side. You've got another group on another side. So it feels like there is support for it, but it can't agree on what it looks like. So unfortunately, I think we're just kicking the can down the road.
Danny, thank you so much. Great job as always. We'll see you next week. For those of you that haven't had enough of me, you'll see me on the Harmony channel in 5 minutes with Shamika Michelle, with Virgil, with Chad O. Jackson. We'll be talking about the end of Jasmine Crockett's political career. Is it over? She lost the Democratic primary last night for the Senate. We'll discuss that on the Harmony channel in 5 minutes. That's it, and that's all for us today on Fearless. We'll see you tomorrow.